Hello everyone, this is Mrs. Rouse again. This is the video colored pencils number 2. So we're going to do this second row on the worksheet that says colored pencils worksheet. The materials you need today: you need your pencil sharpener, you need your box of colored pencils. If you happen to own Prismacolor pencils, go ahead and use those. You need both of your erasers. You need the pencil that has tape wrapped around it. Because we're going to need a little bit of that tape. And one of the special pencils that I put in your bag is called a colorless blender, and you're going to need this. It looks like wood here on the outside. You can see through and see the wood grain, so you can see right there. And on the inside, it just looks like kind of a off-white mushy color, like a little bit gray, a little bit white. Anyway, so if it should say blender or colorless, something like that here. And we're going to need that today. If you do not have, I gave this to everyone in the baggie. I put it on the list. If for some reason you don't have it, you could probably substitute white, but I think it would be nice for you to get this before you do the big assignment. So if you don't have it, let me know. We can get you one. Okay, it's one of the great things you can buy in the art store. It's relatively new in the art scene. It's kind of fun. Okay, so to get started, we have these 4 techniques in this video. I have pulling out my pencils again. I want you to pick any one color. That definitely don't use the yellow. Any one color. I'm not going to use the white, but we're using it later. So any one dark color. I'm going to go ahead, I think, and pick this pretty blue color, because why not? No, I think I'll pick a dark blue. I'll pick it. Okay, so this one is called variation of pressure. Here we had heavy pressure. Here we had a line weight variation. So the idea is where there's different ways to do something, so your variety has some interest to it. So everything doesn't look exactly the same, as well as the fact is all of a sudden it's in color and you can change up on the colors. So a variation of pressure, there's 2 things that are happening with it. It's a way of doing shading, obviously, and it's also a way of kind of showing transitions. This is going to be in one color, so just choose the one color you want, and we're going to have 4 things here. So what we're going to do first is we're going to take our color, we're going to push a little harder here on the left, and then we're going to lighten up and fade lighter as we go until it's so light you can almost not see it. So I have to keep going with it a couple layers. I'm not really hatching. I am doing kind of the zigzag thing, but I'm trying to do it really, really lightly. So what we're doing is a transition from light, dark towards light. It's usually easier that way as opposed to light to dark. And then you can always layer it a little bit darker if you want to. So at the very end here, so you can just barely see color. Okay, we're going to try that again. Same thing, a lot of pressure, even heavy right here at the corner. And try and see if you can get the middle, right in the middle of the paper. So one, key is layering in colored pencils. Otherwise, there's a tendency to get some lines that are darker or lighter than others. 2, just so if you need to have some transitions, you can't help but look back and forth when you have a trend, when you have your colors, color variations going. Now I'm here on the other side. I'm going to try from right to left. I'm left-handed, so I prefer the left to right one. So one of these will probably be a little easier for you, just like they are for me. This one's not much fun. We're going to actually end up doing 4. So we're going to do left to right 2 times and then right to left 2 times. So your drawing will look just like my drawing, except maybe you chose a different color. So just really lighter, 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 lighter as you go across the paper. And if you've really done a good job with this, right in the middle, looking all the way down, it's all going to line up and kind of match. So really light over here. It also reminds you when you're drawing, it's like how light or dark do I want it, instead of just assuming everything's always has the same pressure. You know, how's that going to work? So if it is some type of shading, you could certainly use this method for that. But how light or dark, you can have variations like this, which would make things that much more interesting to look at, more three-dimensional, and so on. So basically, when it looks nice and even, ooh, I like that last one, and when it goes right down the middle of the page, it looks about the same, then you're done with this one. So that's a variation of pressure. Try, you know, mixing it up a little bit when you're drawing. Okay, the next two are going to be a little tricky. You're not always going to be able to see what you're doing, which seems very odd. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to draw two rectangles side by side. We need to use the same color in both of these boxes. So I'm going to write the word same color, same one color for both boxes, okay? So you don't mix that up. It's like a science experiment. That's the constant, is that we're using the same color over and over. So don't mix that up. So I'm going to draw a rectangle, kind of light. Then I'm going to draw another rectangle, kind of light. And then over here, same thing, very light, using the same color with your pencil. Over here, we're going to fill in our two rectangles. I would say just a little bit darker than medium. And what I'm doing is I'm just gently filling it in. I'm doing a little bit. This isn't a piece of fine art. This is a worksheet. I don't have to take that much time. So, but I want to fill it in nice enough that you can't see my lines. So we're only going to fill in the first two. I'm going to go in the opposite direction and see if I can get rid of some of those lines. You'll notice the paper itself has a little bit of texture to it, which is fine. Okay, now I'm going to do the other one. And I want them to pretty much look the same because, like I said, it's a science experiment and you need to have a control. That's the proper word. Excuse the helicopter. So here we go. Side by side. So they look about the same. So now we're going to take our blender, and on the one that's on the right, so what the blender does is it's the same material that's used in Prismacolor, specifically pencil, but it's very similar to other pencils. But it has no pigment, it has no coloring agent in it. So it's only the binder, it's only that waxy stuff. And when it's used to do blending, it won't change the color, but it'll kind of blend it together like using a blending stick. And it'll also make it more transparent looking, and it also tends to make it look darker. So I'm making a stripe here going across. It's important, if I did have lines, that I do the lines in the same direction as the ones I put in, or you really get globs. So you'll notice I'm not adding any color to this, but it got darker. It's more transparent, kind of smooth, and kind of, it's actually a little bit shiny. I'm making two stripes here. So I'm right on top of the red, I'm adding the blending pencil. And if you had lines showing, make sure you do this in the direction you drew the lines. Okay, so the blender can take my color, it can smooth it out and make it look kind of transparent. So that's what the blender can do with just one color. Before there was a blender, the blenders are about 10 years old. People used to use white for blending for the same type of thing. So now I'm going to use my white colored pencil, and I'm going to see if I can get any difference here. Now it's not, sometimes depending on the color you choose, you can see it or not seeing it. We're not seeing it very well with the red. Let me try a little bit of, just so you can see if it works any better. a different color. Not so much. If you happen to have the Prismacolor pencils, you'll really see it. Okay, now I'm going to try another band down here at the bottom. Give pretty good pressure. See, it's blending it, it's smoothing it out, but you can hardly see it. It's also making it look a little blobby. So I would say it's always nice to have scratch paper. Try these things out. The white's not really helping in this situation. In fact, it's making it look less clean and a little bit smushy, but you can see how they're shiny. There, at that angle, you can kind of see it. So if you're working on a drawing, you want special effects of water, or you want to smooth something out, or maybe this is too rough for like a skin texture or a peach or something, you could use one of these to smooth out your colors a little bit. Just if the color underneath is drawn well, this will come out a little bit nicer. Okay, on the next square, we're going to reverse this thing. So this is really tricky. We're going to draw with our blender first underneath and then put the red color on top, or whatever color you happen to choose. So I'm going to make this little rectangle here like a stripe with my blender. I'm going to push pretty hard. I can actually see it because it's shiny just a little bit because of my lighting. If you can't see it, then you just have to remember where you put it. And like I said, you really need to push it down hard. So I put my two stripes in. Don't draw everywhere because we want to see a control. So I drew here and here, just like over here. Now on the second one, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to make two stripes in white. And in just a second, we're going to draw over the top of this with the color. So give nice heavy pressure to this because we want it to really work. And what's interesting when we do the next step is that sometimes one works better than the other. And you end up with something really cool. And actually some colors work differently than others. There's a lime green color that really looks amazing. There's an aqua color. I mean, it just kind of depends. Okay. Oh, oops, I added some white over there. I don't want white. I can get blender back on top. Sorry about that technical issue. Only blender, only white. Okay, so now I'm taking my color again. I'm going to get rid of any residue that's there. And I'm just gently going to add color. Now where the other two pieces are, they're going to resist the color. And it's not going to want to stick to the paper quite as much. You can see where the two stripes are a little bit. And now we're going to go again. So depending on the color you chose and how hard you push down with your pencil, see, I'm drawing right on top of them, but you can hardly see them there. You get these interesting effects. They're very different than this. In fact, here it almost looks it looks a little lighter than it came out over here. But sometimes you want this effect or that effect. This one's kind of neat if you're using a very dark blue for night sky techniques. Oh wow! See now with the white, this is working like crazy. Where it really didn't work so well with my red with the blender. So if you draw, give it a try on scratch paper first. But let's see, I wanted to draw some stars in the sky. If I drew them in white and pressed pretty hard and then drew my sky over the top, they would come out kind of glowing like this white is glowing right here. So try out your colors. It's always a little different. This is, like I said, this is like science. Use scratch paper. Try your colors out before you try this in a drawing you're spending a lot of time on. So some colors work really good this way or that way, but it's just an added effect you can have with still using the same piece of paper. Okay, the next one we're doing in this video, that's kind of fun. So these two colors side by side, your paper should look just like mine. For some reason, if it doesn't, do it on another paper and then glue it right on top so it does. The next one, you're going to get another, any other darkish color, just not yellow. And we're going to draw a triangle. With our triangle, we're going to fill it in. It's very hairy right now. I like to fill in with a really light touch, and then I layer. Like I said, I just layer a few times, and it comes out looking nice and even. Then if I accidentally draw a line that's just too dark, I have to either erase it, or I have to make sure. Let's say I decided this line right here is too dark. I was going to get darker. I just draw darken around that line so it doesn't look as dark right there. Want it to be just a little bit, I would say a little bit darker than a medium will help on this. So you want, everyone needs to make a triangle. There's a reason. And you're going to fill it in, not like heavy pressure, but fill it in a little bit on the dark side. So colored pencils are waxy, you know, whereas graphite is kind of a metallic. So in a way they're similar because they have a kind of a soft texture to them when you're working with them. But they're very different in other ways. One of the ways is erasing. So what we're going to do on this last one is we're just going to try a couple erasing techniques and see which one works better. So we have 3 ways of erasing with colored pencil. The first one is we just use a piece of artist tape. So peel a piece of tape off here. Looks like I got graphite there. A clean piece of tape. And then what I would do is you just push it on one of the 3 corners. Just put your tape down there. Don't push too hard, but push it down and then pull up. And you'll notice that the tape pulled a lot of the color right off. So I'm gonna do it again. Maybe I want it lighter. What's nice about the tape, look at the back side of the tape there. What's nice about the tape, it gives you a really nice edge. It's really clean, and you haven't really messed with your drawing. You haven't smushed up your drawing. It's very clean. It's not going to smear your drawing anywhere. So tape is actually not a bad eraser at all for colored pencils. Another thing some of my students do sometimes is they'll take the piece of tape and put it around their finger, and they'll go like this to lighten up an area. So that's kind of a nice way to erase. Our next eraser is going to be just our white vinyl eraser. So let's try taking off a corner with that. Now the problem with the vinyl eraser, and it works pretty well, you can see it's working pretty well, is it has a tendency to smush things around. So you have to be careful with it. There's a soft line right there. So if I wanted a really hard line, I could take my eraser shield and erase it pretty well. So this actually worked pretty well as an eraser as well. We accept that it smushes it down, and so we've lost this clean look where the drawing just sits there, and we've smushed it down into the paper. So actually, professionally, that'd probably be your last choice just because of that factor. And then we have our kneaded eraser. Do this on the 3rd corner. Just push it down, pull it up, push it down, pull it up. So remember, it's down, up. So you're trying not to smear things. It's actually erasing really well too. I could, if I wanted to, use the straight edge here of my eraser shield. And this worked pretty well too. You're trying not to smear it. I think I smeared that one a little bit. So all 3 of them actually worked quite well as ways of erasing. You're going to get your preferred way. But it's kind of fun to know, especially with colored pencils, that you have multiple ways of erasing. The tape it works okay with graphite, but it works really well with colored pencils. So from this point on, you choose how you want to erase your paper. And this is the end of this particular video. Thank you.